This channel is supported by Truefire.
Well, what is this all about then? It's the Truefire Summer Music Festival. What I'm going to tell you about, you can get 1 month of All Access for just $1. The All Access, you can dip in and out of every single course on Truefire, so that's a really great way to get some awesome courses down you.
In 2020, when the GT1000 core came out, this kind of, I think, was positioned pretty much to compete directly with the HX Stomp. At the time, there were people, saying, is this an HX Stomp killer? And that sort of thing. 5 years later, what has changed on the GT1000 core? It's a lot less than you might expect from a digital modeler that has come about in the last sort of 15 years, where we know basically that pretty much every key player in this situation brings new stuff to the table in order to keep interest and new customers coming along for the ride. Boss have added 3 amps, I think. 3 amps and a couple of bass amps in that time. It's a little bit disappointing. What you maybe didn't know about the GT1000 core, or maybe you did, but there's certainly things that I didn't realise. Steve Lukather made some presets for this. I didn't realise that. Jack Gardner has made some presets for it. I did know about those. There was someone else who made some presets that has skipped my mind. Johnny Marr uses a GT1000 core. This is, I think, for the size, about the most powerful modeler there is at this size. So at the time, there was this chat around the 24 simultaneous blocks that this can run. Now, it can run 24 simultaneous blocks, which is a lot more than HX Stomp, more than the Hotone stuff, more than most things probably more than FM3 even, and it can do dual amping. The sort of downside with this is that it's not the most free signal path ever, although it is free enough that I think you could probably do most of what you'd like to do with it. So those 24 blocks include some things that are included in every preset, so like 4 possible delays, reverb, a master delay, 2 EQs, I think, 2 noise suppressors, and that sort of thing. So there's actually a little bit less flexibility than maybe might be suggested by 24 simultaneous blocks, which was kind of my point of contention at the point when it came out, was that people were saying like it could do 24 simultaneous blocks, but when you dig deeper it's a little bit different to that. But it does have some other features which are pretty unique to the Boss. So one of these is Spillover. So this was a big thing that came along with the ToneMaster Pro, and we were singing the praises of that and Fractal when they figured it out as well. But this has that, kind of comes along for the ride. You keep blocks the same across presets, they will spill over. It's already there. There's one other really cool feature which I think is underrated. This STOMPBOX feature, which is essentially, say you had like an amp as you like to set it. So in here I've got the boutique amp. I've used it in a few of these presets. Say you had that and you had the settings that you like. You sort of had them as a favorite. What you can do is save it to a STOMPBOX slot. And then if you make changes and use that STOMPBOX in other presets, essentially when you edit that STOMPBOX slot, it will ripple through all of your effects. So you could make a change. So this could be good or bad, right? So this could be something you need to watch out for. Or it could be like a really great benefit because, you know, it could make editing presets way quicker. So you've got your delay settings that you have used all the time, and you think, actually, I want to go a bit wetter than that across all of my presets. If they're set up on one of your STOMPBOX slots, you just make that change and you're good to go. Like, it's pretty clever in that way. I think it sounds good as well. The hardware, I think, is about class leading. It's 32, what's the word? Bits. Lots of bits. But normally, a lot of our devices these days use 24. This actually uses 32. And it's, I think, the lowest latency modeler as well, according to Leo Gibson's stuff on that. It's got loads of outputs and all that sort of stuff. You've got control 2, 3, expression, send and return 1 and 2, so 2 effects loops, left and right out, left and right in. I would say that the other downside with it, there aren't a ton of amp models. I think there's like 20-ish. So even though they've added these new ones, it's kind of like, well, when the Helix has over doubled its amount of amp models in the same sort of time frame, there's really just nothing particularly to talk about with the GT1000 core. It's just that everything that's in here is pretty okay, is what I would say, pretty good. And had they spent some attention on it, I do think this is an incredibly capable unit that people could have got exactly what they're looking out of from it. You know, there aren't many units around this size that have that kind of quality, the amount of effects that Boss generally have anyway, and they're always coming out with new sorts of effects and stuff. They could have, you know, brought everything along for the ride with it. You know, like there's this new rotary effect that they come out. Well, why is there not the digital version going in here? You know, it's just a bit questionable for me because, you know, the Boss ecosystem is pretty rich. And if they brought that stuff along to these kind of devices, the GT, GX, all of that as well, I think Boss would be in a much better position in terms of like being taken seriously in the modeling market. I did dial in this preset quickly. Even if you're not doing tons and tons of stuff, you could have improved. Compressor off. stereo preset with the boutique amp on one side and a deluxe reverb, or the deluxe combo as they call it, on the other. Press her on. I think now the natural drive. I have to say, I think the potential in this device is huge. Again, like I say, 2 amp models, all of these effects, you know, 4 delays alongside these 2 amp models, a master delay, a reverb, I think 2 or 3 or 4 effects blocks, effects returns. The thing that is holding this back really is, I think, Boss giving it like a bit of a marketing push, or also developing for it in a way that actually makes sense. I think that was John Brown, actually, from Monuments, was the other chap that had done some stuff for this. But I think it's such a shame, because actually hardware-wise, it is built very reliably, I think, especially compared to some other bits and pieces that I see. The screen, I think, is a little bit of a letdown in many ways, but, you know, if you're using an editor a lot of the time, which you would be, ideally, if they'd improved that and made that more inviting, you know, the signal chain didn't need to remain as it is. They could have made these changes. It does feel very dated when you're using it now. Like, this is what the signal chain actually looks like to edit. But I do think the sounds are in there. So it's just, I think, a little bit of a shame. The price on them did come down for a while. It's kind of gone back up again. Probably, I'm not sure why. Probably not due to a huge surge in demand, was it? But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I just think the GT1000 core, there was so much potential here. It's just a little bit of a, like, well, they kind of dropped this really cool piece of gear potentially, and then kind of abandoned it. And I think it's a bit of a shame, because, yeah, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever tried one of these? What did you get out of it? Did it have all the stuff you need? Do you think it's underrated? Let me know your thoughts. Cheers.